At the outset, I wanted to thank the Startup Mission, Kerala Startup Mission, for again putting up a wonderful global huddle here. It is reverberating. The side of the state is too much on adrenaline, I would say. Thank you for that. And gentlemen, thank you and welcome to this show. I know you all flew down from various other places, and some of you are returning just after this, and some of you are perhaps staying back for a couple of sessions. So we really, really appreciate your participation and your presence. We hope that this session is going to give you some insights about not just a perspective of starting up something in Kerala or in India, but perhaps scaling up into other parts of the world. That is the theme of this session. So to start with, maybe I will start off a few questions, and perhaps I know there will be a lot more interesting questions from the audience. I still know that we are going to be standing in between the big inaugural ceremony, so I do understand that there is time pressure as well, so I will try to keep it short as well. Respected leaders, to start off with, maybe we'll go from this side, Mr. Erik, to Mr. Castro. Would like to understand a little more specific about your startup ecosystem, because that will be a good starting point. We would like to know what are things that are happening in your country in the field of startup ecosystems. Would you mind starting off?
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, sir, for giving me the floor, and thank you for Kerala Startup Mission for the honor of being here. So I come from Finland, which is a cold, remote, and faraway place, but we are also the happiest nation in the world, not according to ourselves, according to our United Nations. Sometimes it's difficult for us to understand it, but it's happened 7 times in a row now. But this is, you know, one background factor behind the ecosystem thing you asked about. Well, my country is clean, we have good governments, and we are efficient in all aspects. Of course, we have bureaucracy, but not so much as in some other countries. We are a small country, flexible, we can adapt soon. We are business friendly, clean, safe, vibrant, and welcoming. Gender equality is very developed in Finland. We have a lot of female leaders, and we were actually the first country in the world where women both could vote and stand candidates in general elections in 1906. 3 points why Finland has become an increasingly attractive destination for tech professionals. First, we have a thriving tech ecosystem, startup culture. We have a vibrant startup scene with globally recognized companies like Supercell, Rovio, Volt originating here. The annual Slush conference in Helsinki, the Huddle of Finland, last week. That's a major global event for startups and investors. Our country is a leader in fields like 5G development, 6G, AI, clean tech, quantum, satellite technology, and gaming, to name a few. And the government provides quite a lot of research and development support. We invest quite heavily in this field. And second point, we have a collaborative innovation ecosystem. We really foster collaboration between universities, research institutions, and private companies, creating a strong ecosystem for innovation. And the third point maybe a little surprising for some people, we have an English-friendly environment. Our 2 national languages, Finnish and Swedish, but also English is widely spoken. Actually, in many companies in Finland, international companies, English is the internal language. So this makes Finland an accessible and welcoming destination for international investors and professionals. And apart from being nation state, a small nation state in the northeast corner of Europe, we are full members of the European Union since 1995, and we also have the common currency, the euro.
Fantastic. I think that's pretty good an introduction. Perhaps the startup ecosystem that we have nurtured in Kerala, as well as the startup ecosystem that we are seeing growing up in the nation as a whole, is very much aligned to what you said in terms of tech ecosystems and some of the technology areas that you were talking about. So we'll come back and summarize it as we progress to the next member of our panel today. Mr. Brunschwig, Switzerland, beautiful place. When we hear of it, it's known for its beauty, and we from Kerala always love natural beauty. Apart from beauty, we know that there are a lot of things that are happening out there. So would you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here for the third time. Alas, this will be the last huddle that I get to attend, as my time in India is coming to an end next year. But I love coming back every year. And you know, I have the unique privilege of leading the Swiss Science and Technology Consulate. So my job is about research and innovation, so startups are part of the bread and butter of why I am posted here. And so why does Switzerland even have something like a consulate for science and technology? That's because that is very much at the foundation of the success of the country. You know, I was listening to Erik describe Finland, and while Switzerland cannot claim the same accomplishments on, say, gender equality and being a socially progressive and equal and just society, there are a lot of commonalities to the ecosystem that Erik described. Now, in Switzerland, you know, I can't name you a Swiss startup that you will know, like Sweden has Spotify, like we have countless ones in India, of course, and from other parts of the world. And that is a feature, it's not a bug. Switzerland has been consistently ranked the most innovative country on earth in the Global Innovation Index for the past 14 years. And of course, that is intimately tied to the startup scene. Now, the reason you don't know the name of a lot of Swiss startups is because they tend to do things that are highly specialized, that do not reach a very large audience, but reach a rather small audience, but that provide a service or a product without which you cannot do other things. For example, there is not a single space mission that happens without some Swiss technology in it, because of the precision engineering that is part of what Switzerland has been able to build over centuries, starting with the watchmaking industry a long time ago. Now, the startup ecosystem in Switzerland, therefore, is a very focused one on deep tech. So, you know, it is, as a small country, you're not going to be very successful with developing big commercial platforms, because you do not have that large population. And while it is a well-integrated country in the context of Europe, without being a member of the European Union, that's just not the way to success. So the way to success is to focus on things that are very hard to produce, very hard to make, that require a lot of knowledge, so that are knowledge intensive. And so the proximity between startups and academia is one of the key features of the Swiss ecosystem, and one of the key differences where I think there is enormous potential for India to make strides and advancements. Because if I look at how many startups in India, now the third largest startup ecosystem on earth, have spun out of universities, it's a very small fraction of the total. If I look at how many startups in Switzerland are spinning out of universities, it's almost all of them. If they're science and technology based, they're virtually almost always come out of a university. So that's the ecosystem that I have the pleasure to represent. And of course, as a small country that is very knowledge intensive, having an outlook towards the world and connecting with the wider world becomes key to the success. Hence, I have the best job in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think very interesting point, deep tech focus, and very much close towards academia in terms of startup ecosystems. Great point. Moving on to you, sir. I think we have, in Kerala, we have a speciality compared to many other parts of the country. We are perhaps the very few states who loves football, okay? While the entire nation is behind cricket, we are the nation which loves, we are a state which loves football, okay? And when we hear of football, Copa America and European Cup and all those things are kind of very close to our heart. So we know Chile from that perspective, perhaps, but we also know Chile from a larger business ecosystem and also tourism destination, etc. But when it comes to startups, I think our understanding about the startup ecosystem is perhaps limited. It would be great if you can give us some insights into your startup ecosystem.
Thank you so very much for the invitation. Thank you you all for being here after lunch. I know that we got the trickiest session ever, so I'm gonna make it as fun as possible. It's very interesting what you said about football and about tourism and about agri-food, because this is what we are most well known for. Let me just take you on a journey back to 2000, more or less. I promise I will take it. I won't take it much to make my point. But back in 2000, what happened in my country was that our export promotion metrics was heavily dependent on primary goods. We suffered what is called the Dutch disease, so we were heavily related to copper and agri-food as well. So what the government did was basically allowing private companies, right, like investors, to invest in companies, because before that they only could invest in open companies, right? Great, we got one part of the equation. What it was missing was the other bit, which was companies. Chile realized that we didn't have companies in which investors could invest. So what we did was, looking towards our friends from the north, was to implement grants, right? So we can give people free money to run their business, to try new things, to fail. Surprise, surprise, surprise. What happened was that we realized that we didn't have an entrepreneurial mindset, right? I don't know how in India, but in my country we are very risk adverse, and I'm happy to say that that's moving on. So what happened was that in 2010, the government set up the first ever public accelerator called Startup Chile. And I was very happy to learn that among from here in Kerala, there is a Startup Chile alumni. So I'm quite proud of that. So basically what we did with Startup Chile was import entrepreneurial mindset from the world. And now, more than 14 years after, India is the fourth nationality from which our entrepreneurs come. So I really hope that I can push that towards the first or the second. So this is until 2010, right? And now what is happening is that it started to happen what in academia is called the spillover effect. So entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs started to create the first entrepreneurial associations. They started talking about venture capital. And summarizing right now, we have three main clusters in my country. So I don't know if you have seen like a map of Chile, but we are a very thin and long country, right? So in the north, we have the mining sector, so that's why there are a lot of developments around the mining ecosystem. In the center, we have a cluster of creative industries, which is located in Valparaiso, which is at the coast. And then in Santiago, it's sort of like the London or the capital, which basically means that HQs are located there, so decision-making are located there. So you get a lot of fintech and a lot of tech companies as well. Last but not least, we have the south. So we have also a cluster of agriculture. So some months ago, I took a delegation of around 15 entrepreneurs to Aviemore in Scotland, just to start, working and building those beaches. And I'm here in India to take that relation even further. Thank you.
Fabulous. I think if I were to, I was only a very small part of the whole startup ecosystem, but as a curious viewer of some of the way in which startup ecosystems are growing up in the state of Kerala as well as in the larger national level, I think we have a very similar scenario where we had to inculcate the startup mindset. I think that's pretty difficult, and it is very, very important for anything to pick it up.
And also it's interesting because if you look at the map of India and the map of Latin America, we are sort of like located at the end of the continent, and in your case at the end of India. So it's even challenging when it comes to that. So I totally empathize with the challenges that you're facing.
Sure. All right. That's another similarity. I think our state looks very similar to Chile. So fantastic. Okay. Just to understand the audience here very quickly, how many of us are in deep tech startups here? Deep tech startups? Quite a few. Okay. How many of you are in manufacturing segment? Couple of hands. Okay. Anybody in the electronics, IoT, robotics related area? Okay, fair enough. software-related domains like newer generation, like AI, data science, data analytics. Okay, fair enough. Okay. So I just thought we will get a perspective of it. With that, I think we'll move on to a next segment, which is perhaps going to be something similar to a lot of our audience sitting here. We wanted to understand, I'm sure you're all an open economy, therefore you promote and inculcate globalization across. So very specifically, we wanted to understand if companies in Kerala or India were to come to your country, what are the nuances that we need to work out? What are the opportunities that we have? So probably we'll go in the same order. We'll start with you, Mr. Erik.
Yes, many of the rules regarding foreign companies coming to our country are also European Union rules, because the European Union Commission is responsible for trade and common agricultural policy, competition rules, and so on. But then the national states, members of the European Union, can still give their own incentives for companies. And in my country, we have, for instance, an institution called Finvera and Fin Partnership that gives companionships for joint venture. There can be some startup money. And then we have also some startup money from Business Finland, but that's mainly for small Finnish companies looking for international possibilities. But generally spoken, it comes both to Finnish small and medium-sized companies looking at India and Indian companies looking at Finland. You need a partner, a local partner to navigate and give you a good advice.
And Finnish companies are open for such partnerships?
Yes, I would say so. And Finnish companies also want to sell their components to big Indian enterprises. And this has actually been the goal also for us at the Consulate General.
Okay, fair enough.
To support such activities, yes.
Okay, I think that was a part of my third question, but fair enough. Yeah, moving on to you, sir.
You know, before I start answering a question, I pulled out my phone not to answer messages or check email, but I was checking the populations of Chile and Finland. And I think that the three of us, the countries that we represent, have a population smaller than the state of Kerala combined. So just to put that into perspective, and the size and magnitude of opportunities. Now, when it comes to opportunities in Switzerland for startups in India, it is not something that is easy to pitch. Switzerland has very high cost of labor. It's very expensive to set up something in Switzerland because the salaries are very high. The flip side of that is that the talent and the technical level of the talent that is available is possibly the highest that you can get for very specific fields. Other point of possible advantage is geography. Situated in the heart of Europe, it can be a gate opener to all of Europe. And you know, our country is less than 1 crore population, divided into 26 cantons, so the equivalent of 26 states. So think about that. You know, in India, a country of 1.5 billion, so we have very small units, and these units compete to a certain extent with each other to make it attractive to foreign firms to come and invest. So next point is incentives that are regional incentives by different cantons, different parts of the country that are trying to attract. But I can give you the example of one startup, one Indian deep tech startup, Sindler, based in Bangalore. They have developed one of the world's most advanced computer vision systems. I think there's a brilliant metaphor that they use. Imagine focusing on a fly while riding a horse. That is the level of precision that they're able to achieve with their computer vision. And they have one of their closest partnerships is with Maxon that does motors. It's a Swiss company that has some of the most powerful and fastest motors that have been on all the rovers, hence the space example I mentioned before. They set up an office in Switzerland, R&D. So the the equation is quite straightforward there.
Sure. I think that's an interesting point. Maybe the startups may need to look at it as a more innovative way of using that location as a gateway for Europe and probably tap into the specific high talent ecosystem out there and probably have a hybrid model. Now, I think it's a global economy, so therefore place doesn't exclusively matter. Physical place may not exclusively matter. Moving on to you, sir. What's up in Chile in terms of promoting? You said that you have already imported a lot of talent from India, but what's it in the future?
First of all, I think that it's important to mention that Chile, the way in which, well, I totally agree that my colleagues here, they will agree with me, is that every country has the unique USP, right? And I will have to say that first, for the startups, what is important is to understand what they need, and then after that, approach to the countries. Basically, governments, they have institutions which support trade and investment, right? And by trade, I mean companies from that country which are willing to export or open a new company in that country. That's one side of the sphere. The other one is investment. So basically supporting foreign companies tackling into the country. Each government has that, or most of them has that. Some of them, they have a regional approach, as my colleague from Switzerland was mentioning. So what is important is to actually do the homework and understand what each government is providing, right? And speaking about like the right things. Having said that, right now for my country, what we're doing is we're trying to bring those regions together. As an example, well, it's the first time that I'm here in Kerala. I arrived 4 months ago, and up until now, we haven't done much when it comes to technology and innovation. So what we are doing is basically decreasing the gap just by doing different initiatives and events. As a commitment to that, my president is coming in next year, and as part of that, we will be doing a couple of events which will aim to bring those gaps together. Because at the end of the day, and this is a say that we have in Chile, one hand watch the other, and together they watch the face. So basically, we need to build those connections. Last but not least, and if you want me to tap into like a specific opportunity, we have the program Startup Chile, as I said before. Unfortunately, the call was open a few weeks ago, but please mind the gap for next year, which are going to be open. Those are basically 3 grant-free programs. The first one is for developing up the prototype. The second is to scale, and the third one is to become global. As part of that, you will have to relocate in Chile for up to 1 year, but we have good weather and we play football, so I think that you should be absolutely fine. And you can teach us how to play cricket.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I know it was a very, very busy and a very quick session, but I hope it was of some use. If you liked it, can I have a big round of applause for our dear panelists? Thank you.